Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the poem Thoughts in a Garden by Andrew Marvell. Andrew Marvell was an English metaphysical poet. He was a satirist and a politician who sat in the House of Commons at various times between 1659 and 1678. He was a colleague and friend of John Milton during the Commonwealth period. He was in his own time known as a political controversialist. He was an ardent Republican and also a champion of religious tolerance. Some of his famous works are Thoughts in a Garden, To His Coy Mistress, Song of Immigrants in Bermuda, and the Horatian Ode upon Cromwell's return from Ireland. His poems combine strange images with lyric grace. The Garden by Andrew Marvell is a unique poem which is romantic in its expression. It is metaphysical in its word game. This poem is also classical in its music. It is romantic because it is about nature. Its subject and theme is based on nature, and it is the expression of the poet's personal as well as emotional feelings about life in the company of nature. Thoughts in a Garden is one of the finest English poems. It is written about the charm of a garden. In this poem, Andrew Marvell writes in the fashion of the 17th century, and he combines wit with a bold fancy in order to stress the joys of solitude and peace in a garden. He begins the poem, How vainly men themselves amaze. How vainly, how uselessly men amaze themselves. Amaze themselves, confuse themselves, or perplex themselves. Here, amaze is used in the older sense of perplex or vex. To win the palm, the oak or bays, and their unceasant labours see, crowned from some single herb or tree. Men work hard in order to win crowns formed by herbs or leaves of a single tree. They work hard in order to achieve triumphs in the feats of physical or intellectual prowess. In classical times, to be crowned with a garland or a wreath made from one or other of these plants, that is, the palm, the oak, or bays, was the mark of the victor. Whether he had excelled in feats of athletics or war, or in the gentler arts of oratory or poetry. So he says that men work hard in order to be crowned with the leaves of these trees. And he says that whose short and narrow verged shade, he says that the narrow verged, small edged shade of these garlands does prudently their toils upbraids or reproaches the toil or hard work of these people. While all flowers and all trees do close to weave the garlands of repose. He says that all the flowers and all the trees come together to form a garden, and they weave the garlands of repose or rest, the rest which a person finds from a garden is not temporary or short-lived like a garland which is made from some flowers or some leaves which dies after a short time or which dries after a short time. So the garden begins with the speaker reflecting upon the vanity or inferiority of men's devotion to public life in politics, war, or civil service. Now the poet continues, fair quiet, have I found thee here? Fair quiet, beautiful quiet or quietness. I have found you here. Here means the garden. I have found you here in the garden. And innocence thy sister, and innocence your sister. Innocence is the sister of quietness. He says that I have found quietness and innocence in the garden. Mistaken long, I sought you then in busy companies of men. He says that for a long time I had been mistaken because I tried to seek quietness and innocence in busy companies of men. Your sacred plants, if here below, only among the plants will grow. He says that the sacred plants of quietness and innocence can grow, can flourish only in the plants in a garden. Society is all but rude. Society is uncultured and barbarous. So, innocence and quietness cannot be found in society. It can be found only in a garden. Society is all but rude to this delicious solitude, to this as compared to this delicious solitude which is found in a garden. So the speaker says that the values of fair quiet and its sister innocence can be found in a garden. He portrays the garden as a space of sacred plants removed from society and its rude demands. He praises the garden for its shade of lovely green in the third stanza. So we see that in the first stanza, the speaker mentions three forms of public virtue associated with the emblem of a particular plant's leaves. The palm was associated with military virtue, the oak was associated with civil virtue, and the bay or laurel was associated with poetic virtue. However, he says that these symbols also suggest the limitations of the pursuit they signify. Why? Because the wreaths made of these plants are only made of trimmings from the actual plants. Public life and devotion to virtue must come to an end one day. So the speaker suggests that just as the flowers and the trees do close to weave the gardens of repose, so must individuals also retreat from their social obligations to the garden. Now he praises solitude and quietness in this retreat into the garden. He believes that he was mistaken to have tried to seek fair, quiet, and innocence among the busy companies of men. He also associates private retreat with a holy experience, stating that sacred plants of quiet and innocence can only grow amongst these plants in a garden. Now the speaker or the poet further writes, no white nor red was ever seen so amorous as this lovely green. He says that the white color or the white complexion which is associated with the body of the beloved and or teeth of the beloved, or the red color which is associated with the lips of the lover, they are not so amorous or lovable as this lovely green color of the garden. Fond lovers, cruel as their flame. He says that fond lovers or foolish lovers who are as cruel as their flame. Here, flame is the flame of love. Love or the fire of love which consumes their own bodies. He says that lovers are as cruel as this flame which consumes their own bodies. Cut in these trees their mistress's name. That lovers write or cut the name of their mistresses in the barks of the trees. Little alas they know or heed. He says that they know very little and they do not care how far these beauties hers exceed. Hers here stands for their mistress's beauty. He says that these trees are much more beautiful than the mistresses of those lovers. Fair trees, beautiful trees. Whereas ever your barks I won't, wherever your barks have been cut or you have been hurt by the cut, no name shall but your own be found. Your own name comes from beneath the carvings. So no one can write the name of the mistresses, because from below also the name of the tree comes. So here we see that the poet continues to develop his extended conceit of the garden's superior virtues. He finds that the lovely green color of the gardens is much favorable and much romantic than red and white, which are the colors which poets often use in erotic poetry to describe the lips, teeth, or the face and the body of the beloved. He says that lovers may carve the name of their beloved into trees, but the speaker or the poet finds such actions to be fruitless, because he believes that each tree already contains a more beautiful imprint, that is its own name. So we see in this poem, Andrew Marvell presents the beauty of a garden very wonderfully. He illustrates the calm and pleasant beauty of the garden, and he seems to be walking in a garden one day, and as he walks, he finds heavenly beauty in the trees, herbs, and flowers. He says that in this world, where all things are prone to decay, the beauty of the garden remains constant. And the eternal beauty of the garden makes the poet thoughtful about the beauty of nature. So we see that the main theme of this poem is the peaceful life in nature is more satisfying and than social life and human company. Thank you.